Hello, my name is Wyatt Moore, and the OTR I will be talking about today are response cards. Response cards are pre-made laminated cards or dry erase boards that allow for an entire class to respond to a question non-verbally. This could look like a yes and no, correct and incorrect questions, or students could write on their dry erase boards the answer to a question that's been asked by the teacher. These response cards are made for the entire class. All grades and all subjects can benefit from them. Teachers are able to take note of class opinions and answers, or even the comfortability of a subject without the pressure of answering verbally and the ability to answer anonymously. This can be used in any situation where the entire class needs to respond to a question, not just a single student. These could be yes or no questions, single word questions, or even short answer questions on a dry erase board. Another one that is really helpful is how comfortable students are with a subject or content area that just got taught. Do any of you need me to go over it again, or are you comfortable? They could put up there whether they're comfortable or not. How is this helpful for students? Well, students are able to respond together anonymously, so they're not feeling the pressure of other students knowing their answer, whether or not they got the answer right or wrong, and they're able to respond truthfully as possible. Teachers are able to assess the entire class all at once and know whether or not they need to go over the material again. Not just answering one student's, not just responding to one student's answer. There are a couple things you need to know as a teacher when using response cards. First, you should laminate your response cards so that you can reuse them. As you do more teaching with response cards, you're probably going to occur a lot of different types of ones, so it's good instead of making new ones every time you need them, just to have them ready and keep them in a safe spot. Have a variety of all kinds of responses. You don't know when you'll be able to use them or when they would be effective, so using them at different spots and for different things to figure that out for your class in all kinds of subjects would be perfect. A classroom management thing, you need to make sure your students know how and when to use the response cards. How they need to make sure they're not fidgeting with them or playing with them or damaging them in any way. And when you need to, there needs either to be a signal when to use the response cards or a certain phrase that you'll use, like please put up your response cards, something that the class knows and is conditioned to, so they're not putting their response cards up at random times or don't know when to use the response cards or not putting them up when they should be. Also, this is not a response tactic to be used all of the time. You should use response cards intermediately. It's good for students to respond to questions verbally as well. I would not use this as an assessment tool. However, it is easy for students to copy off of others' responses just by simply looking at other responses. So group mentality might going into looking at the person who knows the most in the classroom or the teacher's pet or whatever, and everyone looking at them for their response. And it just becomes a problem. So using them intermittently is important. Let us look at some examples of good and bad response cards. One good example of a response card, in this situation, the teacher is asking, can you all hold up your cards and tell me whether or not you fully understand the concept? The students will all put up their understand, except for maybe one or two that put up don't understand. This way, the students who put up the don't understand could either be given supplementary instruction or the whole class will go over the content again. it's not bad for students who already understand the content to go over it again as a reinforcement. The students who don't understand are able to respond and get help without the pressure of other classmates knowing what they answered, and everyone else gets better because of it. A bad example of response cards. The teacher asks Jane, can you please put up your response card and give me your answer to the question, true or false? Jane would be hesitant to put up the answer card, and she puts up true while the entire class looks at her. The teacher said, yes, true, this is correct. Now, even though the teacher got a response from Jane, she was pretty hesitant to put it up because the entire class is now looking at her. Simply ticking out the verbal aspect of answering a question does not necessarily mean there's less pressure on the student when they're asked. It's just as inefficient if she just would have asked Jane, is this true or false? And Jane said true or false. In fact, it would have been more efficient because Jane would just have answered verbally. The effectiveness of a response card comes from the entire classroom being able to answer. So classroom pressure is taken out. And the teacher will know immediately what problem areas know, and she gets all the responses instead of just one response from just Jane. Thank you for listening to my talk about response cards. Here's a list of references that I used in this project. Thank you.